Go Big Red on the field and Husker fans in the stands. A good look and a good time for all in a 21-20 game at Nebraska's spring game, red and white, on Saturday to conclude the spring session under Scott Frost. Welcome into Nebraska Cornhuskers Live. Of course, we've got Greg Peterson on the line from Husker Online to take your comments, your questions, and I will add my 2 cents as well. Greg, how are we doing tonight?
Doing great, Mark. Doing great. How about you?
I am doing well. Appreciate you coming on as always. And we talk Nebraska football every Tuesday night. And this is all possible because of Greg's contributions. So keep that in mind that he takes away from his own situation there with his work there at Rivals, Husker Online, and everything else he's got going on to talk Nebraska football with us every Tuesday night. So the Super Chat's available. Also, again, the live chat. Because you ultimately produce the show by asking your comments and questions. Spring game, yeah. I saw most of it on TV. A good look with 36,000 in the stands, a beautiful day, and a thrilling ball game, at least. Well, we won't necessarily call it a full-on football game, but at least it came down to a final play.
Yeah, it did. It added a little bit of excitement in there, after a first half of touch football. They started tackling there in the second half. The young guys got after it, and actually it made that second half a lot of fun to watch. There's a lot of takeaways from Saturday. Like you mentioned, it was a beautiful day. It was pretty windy though. Down on the field, the wind was really ripping. So it was hats off to those quarterbacks getting it done in that kind of a wind. But we learned a lot. I think I learned a lot. My main takeaway I think was Adrian Martinez really looks a step faster and really looks like he's in command of the offense. And he's got a ton of weapons now to work with. It's not just going to be the Wan'Dale Robinson show anymore. There's a lot of weaponry out there for Adrian to take advantage of. So that was a lot of fun to watch, and I think we also learned that there's a stable of running backs at Nebraska this year. The running back room looks really, really strong, and it's wide open right now. Tons and tons of competition, and that's going to have to work itself out before Nebraska takes the field, next fall.
So as you guys know, when we have incorrect information coming in the live chat, we will point that out and correct that where it says it's just me, Tim, 79. Nebraska players drafted 0. Well, that's incorrect. They had 2 players drafted. We'll get to those in just a second. We're going to stay in the spring game, but we'll get to the NFL draftees in just a second. So, brush up. All you have to do is Google that, and you can find out who was drafted for the Huskers. But we will discuss with Greg here in just a second. But we want to dive into the spring game a little bit more as it came down to the final play of the game, an untimed down. And you'd mentioned that, no tackling in the first half. And you mentioned getting more guys involved in the offense and there being more weapons. And I think right out of the gate, we got a chance to see Amari Turi catch a downfield throw and see, okay, well, this is the guy that we've all heard about, and maybe he's going to contribute big.
Well, yeah, you look at both of those, 2 guys on the edges, Samori Toure and Omar Manning. Those guys, they look the part. They look like an NFL tandem out there. That, quite frankly, we've never seen anything at Nebraska like that with the 2 guys of that caliber on the field. And it gives Martinez, a lot of options there, and that's going to make defenses have to cover all these guys, and really going to open things up for the running game and a lot of underneath stuff. You got to throw in Oliver Martin in there too as a third wideout. Those 3 guys right there are very formidable. Oliver Martin's a sneaky, quick little guy in the slot, and you know what? He's going to catch a ton of balls, and this receiving core, I'm just ecstatic by what I saw on the field. Even though it didn't really matter, it was touch football, but you could still see the talent, and it really gives Adrian Martinez a chance to throw the deep ball now. I think Nebraska kind of showed that they're putting an emphasis on downfield throws. So when you got a couple of weapons on the outside like that, big targets, sky's the limit here. And then you throw in a lot of capable backups too. This is, like I've said before, I sound like a broken record, but I've never seen this kind of talent in the wide receiver room and the running back room as a collective group ever here at Nebraska.
Really, even with some of the wide receiver tandems that we've seen in the past, we talked about it last week, where there have been some pretty good players just here in the last, few years under Mike Riley in particular. And at the end of Bo Pelini's run, where there were some NFL players playing together.
Yeah, absolutely. But, there wasn't this collective group of talent, like I'm talking about. You've always had one or two guys, but you've got at least 5, 6 maybe guys that can go out there and get the job done. It's just guys are just going to be fighting for reps. And there's a freshman that I think is going to play a lot and help out this team is Will Nixon. He's looked really, really good all throughout spring ball, and he showed it again on Saturday that he's a football player. His dad's a coach down in Texas, and he really is an impressive young kid. So yeah, you think of some of those receivers of the past. Yeah, Stanley Morgan, of course, comes to mind most recently. But you were lining up a younger J.D. Spielman with Stanley, a freshman J.D. Spielman, and Tyjon Lindsey would have been like the next guy you're thinking of on that team. I think we talked about last week, you got like a Kenny Bell out there. So you've had guys that are good enough to play in the league. DeMornay Pearson-El, he did a lot of things here as well. So yeah, but just with this collection, I think two actually draftable players. We're talking about at wide receiver here that not just like a 7th round or 6th round. I'm talking pretty high up there. You're looking at 3rd round quality right now at both of these guys if they can maintain what we've seen here in a very short time here at Nebraska.
Pearson-El was a guy that I always expected a little bit more out of. Not that he did anything wrong, but I just thought that he was going to be more involved and be more of a primary guy in the offense. And certainly in the return game, he was spectacular, but never really. He had a nice career. I don't want to disparage it at all, but I expected him to really blossom and take off and be a major player.
Yeah, he got a little bit banged up there. It slowed him down there, where he lost most of the season there, and kind of dealt with a lot of nicks and bumps and bruises, a lot that slowed him down during his career here. But you've always seen the playmaker in him, and he's been in and out of NFL camps, every year. I think last year he was the last receiver cut by the Raiders by John Gruden. And he's played in some of those other fly-by-night leagues that we've seen here lately. But he's still, he's a talented guy, and he can help out an NFL team, and don't be surprised if you see him on somebody's roster.
We talk Nebraska football with you, courtesy Greg Peterson. You can catch his work on Husker Online on Rivals. And also keep in mind, as we discussed last week, you can catch a ton of news conference clips, interviews, and also practice footage on Husker Online right here on YouTube as well. So check it out, the complete look at Nebraska football, raw footage that you're not going to see anywhere else.
Actually, I just premiered, about 40 minutes ago. I put together an Adrian Martinez spring game reel out there. So from up top, so you can kind of see how he did there the whole first half. So check that out if you want to form your own opinion on what you saw out of Adrian Martinez on Saturday.
Very nice. There you go. Check it out right there. So you mentioned a few minutes ago when talking about Adrian Martinez that how good he looked. Here's a guy that stepped on campus, much expected of him, elite athlete, playmaker type, dynamic. um, game-changing ability, has a really good first year. Second year, he starts to get knocked around a little bit. And do you think it's just a matter, and then the who knows the impact on his psyche and so forth after that? Do you think he just feels better physically, maybe fresher, and might be healthier than he's been in a while?
You nailed it right on the head. I mean, he does. He looks fresh as a daisy. I mean, I think I've mentioned it before that, he looks like he did when he was a freshman, the way he moves and everything. And, I think it was that second year, it was his sophomore year there against Colorado when he got cheap shotted there. And, he really wasn't the same for, a couple of years after that. And I think that, he got banged up a little bit more. And now that he's fully healthy, he's really showing, the stuff that he used to have, when he was a younger kid. I mean, you forget he's been here. He's graduating here. He's a member of the graduating class here coming up this month. So, people don't realize that, he's still got 2 years of eligibility to play football here too. So, he's just, I think, in such a better state of mind. Just when you see him, he's smiling all the time. And not that he never was like that, because he's always been a very, compassionate, very, a comrade to everybody. And, very level-headed, wise beyond his years, well-spoken young man. And, the ultimate teammate. I mean, anybody would want him on your team, no matter what position he played, because he's just that kind of guy. And, I think just being fully healthy like he is now, he's going to put his name up there. And if you paid attention to him, too, I mean, he completed – I don't know what his completion percentage was, but it was pretty high up there. And if he can keep doing this throughout the season and limit those turnovers like we talked about, it could be one of those years where you're talking about him at the end of the year, maybe going to New York. You never know. You never know. Just throwing that out there.
Keep in mind that you can shop Amazon using the link that we provide in the description section. Check out the ticker below. Shop Amazon, again, using the link we provide. And it helps us build the channel as well as just being the same shopping experience for you. So, Greg, we've got our guy D-Rock Irish, Notre Dame fan, chiming in. Good evening, everyone. Heard Notre Dame adds fullback Barrett Liebentritt, I believe I pronounced that right, from Nebraska as a preferred walk-on. Any thoughts on what type of impact he would have for the Irish?
I'm not even sure who that is, to tell you the truth. Let me see. Oh, he's from Omaha Scud. Okay. Oh, I know who he is now. All right. Yeah. He's a wrestler and, one of those hard-nosed kind of kids, Midwestern mentality kids. So, Notre Dame, one of those teams that they still utilize a fullback. I'm sure that he'll get right in there and not going to be scared of any kind of competition whatsoever there in South Bend. And, he could possibly help out the Irish right away. You never know. I'm not sure what the Notre Dame roster looks like going into the season.
All right, let's talk Huskers with you as we do each and every Tuesday. So when you look at the spring game, and again, nobody tackled there in the first half, and then no starters played the second half, correct?
No, it was mostly the younger guys. There was a few. I think I saw Samari Torre in there too. I mean, some of the new guys I think played a little bit too. But for the most part, it was the twos and the threes going at it. Yeah.
Is there anybody that really helped themselves, do you think, in this spring game?
I think Heinrich Harburg absolutely helped himself. I think that his performance has the Nebraska coaches ecstatic. I think he's a lot farther along than they ever imagined he would be at this time, which allows them, because a lot of people had been speculating and they had been looking, to add maybe another quarterback to that room from the transfer portal. I think Coach Frost put that to rest the other day, because he's very happy with his quarterback room right now with Logan Smothers and Heinrich Harburg and Matt Masker all there. And, the plan was actually Logan Smothers was supposed to play the whole second quarter and the whole fourth quarter. He came in he was supposed to play the first quarter and the third quarter, the whole quarters. And he came out for the first series, and then Harburg came in, and we didn't see Smothers again until the second half. But he really came on late and looked really good, very athletic, and Harburg really showed that he's got the arm already, and he also, I think, he surprised a lot of people that hadn't had a chance to see him play yet about how athletic he is for a big NFL type body guy already. That he can scoot and. He makes plays with his feet as well as his arms. So those guys really help themselves. And then, I think I mentioned earlier the running back room. Right now with, Marquise Stepp not being able to practice during the spring, Ronald Tompkins Ramir Johnson also out all spring. I think those guys have fallen a step behind now in this running back race, which all of a sudden looks like, in my mind at least, that there's a three-headed battle going on right now with walk-on Jaquez Yant and Marvin Scott III and Gabe Urban Jr., the freshman. And right now I would give it to Gabe Urban, to tell you the truth. But all three of those guys look great. And, Yant in that first quarter or the first half when he carried the ball, he was going against the first team defense, and the first team defense wasn't going to allow those guys to do anything. But then in the second half, you saw Yant just start to run over guys and smash through them. And granted, it was against the twos and the threes, but still, running over guys is running over guys. And he looked really good. So I think those three guys are guys to watch to come out of the lead in the fall, especially like I mentioned with the other two guys not even participating this spring. So it's a great problem for Coach Ryan Held to have with a stable like this that again has got so much talent. I haven't seen this kind of talent as a group here in a long time. And with Nebraska football history, there's been a lot of good running backs come out of this place. So, those guys helped themselves. And there was some younger guys that I think got some chances to play. It was nice to see Blaze Gunnarsson get a sack on Adrian Martinez. He's battled some injuries since he's gotten here, and it was nice to see him out there finally. And he looked really good. Funny story about that is his roommate's Turner Corcoran starting right tackle, and Blaze got a sack off of Turner on there, and Turner was kicking himself for that, and he said he wasn't going to be able to live that one up, the rest of the weekend. He was going to hear about it from his roomie. So, he looked good. Some of those other younger guys running around out there, I think they got their feet wet finally. Especially a lot of guys that have been here that haven't even been able to play in front of any fans yet, and I think that kind of helped them out here, get some butterflies out and see what it's really like to play in front of some actual people here. And overall, I think it was a successful day for the whole program.
It's been more than 20 years since I stood on the field on the sideline on a regular basis during these games. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on this because, and this came to mind because of the question that I just posted from Moonbot7, is that so you've got your eye in front of a lens the entire game on a college football Saturday, right?
Yep, I'm right down there on the sideline looking through my camera.
Yep. So, being on the sideline, and typically I would shoot roughly a quarter to a half of the game, and my cameraman, we would kind of switch off, and because I shot and enjoyed it, we would kind of share the duties. But from being on the sideline, and then obviously you watch games on TV, you watch games. I'm sure you've seen them from the stands, of course, from the press, but all over the place. You get different advantages. And of course, being at home, you get the zillion replays and you get to hear explanations and the slow-mo and the whole thing. Being on the field, there are certain things that you do catch that you would never otherwise get from watching the game elsewhere in regards to, wow, that guy's huge, or wow, that hit was devastating, or whatever, or man, did he run from there to there and get there in a hurry? Those sorts of things. And you just, it's just a different take on the game. So, Moonbot asking questions about formations. What do you think of the new formations Frost showed? And as soon as I processed that question, I thought, well, just knowing what it's like being on the sideline, you sometimes get lost when it comes to certain aspects of the game, not having that higher elevated look to see formations and coverages and sometimes things that happen. So I'm first curious just to hear how you see that in regards to what you take away from the game when you shoot a game versus, I'm sure you go back at times and then watch the broadcast on TV just to see what it looked like there. And kind of your different takeaways. And then if you can address the question, if anything hit you in regards to Frost showing some new formations.
Well, yeah, and it was kind of neat, just because of the times that we're living in right now, that the amount of cameras were limited right now. So usually I could have as many people holding cameras as I want, but I was limited to just myself on the field. And I had one other camera that had to be up on the photo deck on the 7th floor of the press box. And that's the first time I've had somebody up there, and having that footage is great. I loved it. So I've been able to go back and actually analyze everything at my own pace. And, because you're exactly right. You obviously see different things from the field than you do from up top. And I think that the obvious thing when you're up top is that you get to see those things develop. You can notice the formations and everything. Usually, too, like when I'm shooting a Nebraska game, most of the time I'm in an end zone, just because that's the best place to be for the amount of people that are on the sidelines there. It's a pain in the butt to try to get a spot where you don't get somebody blocking you out at some point. So it's a little bit harder to notice some formations and stuff. But when I do go back and look at it, I think, Scott Frost, I think he's always trying to be innovative. And I don't know how much I take out of formations that he's going to show you in a spring practice like that. It's maybe like if you think about maybe that first play of the game when it was a throwback to Adrian Martinez and tried to get it downfield, and it didn't work out too well. But it's hard to say. But in the meantime, too, like I said, I think Coach Frost is always trying to keep his competition on his toes. He doesn't want you to know what he's planning on doing. I think he's always got some surprises up his sleeve. So that being said, especially with Matt Lubick in here as a new coordinator under his system since he's been at Nebraska. Lubick's going into his second year now, probably adding a few wrinkles of his own in there as far as some formations and stuff like that. So, you also have to change things to your personnel as well, as we talked about earlier. Having a lot of talented wide receivers out there with a lot of big bodies, you're going to do different types of formations, try to disguise some of these guys to get them wide open, so there's a lot of factors that go into that. And, kind of bouncing back earlier, when I'm down on the sidelines too, I think, if you're watching the game on TV, everybody looks like they're big. But yeah, when you see some of these guys in person and you're just like, oh my God, he's just a monster, because TV doesn't do that kind of thing justice. And I think another thing is that you can actually see, the speed of the game is much different, down low when you're field level. That up top you're kind of used to the same thing, and you see the things develop. But down on the field, it's boom boom, and especially like, holding the camera, you're trying to pay attention to where that ball is, because, even the best shooter can bite on that fake. It happens all the time. So, yeah, but if you ask me what I prefer is I love being down below. I wouldn't give that up for anything. I mean, especially high school games when you got room to maneuver and, really, really have fun with it and stuff. So, yeah, it really, I would do this job for free just for the chance to be out there and to be around, the game I've loved and been around my whole life.
What Greg's talking about brings me back to a lot of memories, and Greg could explain it from a wealth of experience way beyond me, because I shot games for 8 or 9 years and he's been doing it forever. But yeah, if you're going to a major school like in Nebraska, and for me, for most of my time, it was Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Alabama, and then going on the road to places like LSU and Tennessee and other places. Is yeah, you're there on the field with a zillion other people and their news stations and so forth, and their media departments, and so yeah. It was always annoying because some people you were supposed to stay behind a certain line, and some people would be inching up. And yeah, if the play swung in one direction or another, sometimes you get screwed by other people, and your shot would get in the way, or other people would get in the way of your shot. And so, yeah, the place to be was always, you didn't want the action around the 50-yard line. You wanted them to get near the red zone. You tear down to the end zone so you can get a great look at whatever happens. Yep. And the play's coming right at you. And it's easier to track the ball. And then, of course, again, Greg can explain this so much better than I and has so much more experience with this. But yeah, you always dreaded that play at like the 20-yard line that would go like 60 yards to the other end of the field, and you're racing to the other end of the field hoping not to miss a play because you might miss a big play or a scoring play.
Or you just walk and you don't care about it.
Yeah.
But no, and the thing too at Nebraska is you got to contend with the 200 some ex players that are there every Saturday, and their families, everybody that gets the sideline passes. So I mean, there is absolutely nowhere to go. At Nebraska games, you find a spot and you hunker down. It's kind of like a day off, as far as going up and down the field with the game usually. So yeah, that's a little bit difficult, and especially too at Nebraska too. And when you do need to switch ends like that, you got to go all the way out. A guy's got to open a gate for you, and then you got to sprint down the where it would be like a track usually, like if you're thinking of a smaller stadium, and that's usually where the big ESPN crane is with their overhead camera, and you got to watch out for them and their cords and everything. And then you come in the other end, and you're trying to find a spot down there. There's cheerleaders all in your way, and I mean it's just nuts. So yeah, usually you park it, you put one camera on one end and one on the other end, and you call it good.
That's right. That's right. Also reminds me of, and we'll get back to Nebraska football. I'm sorry, folks, but it reminds me of an SEC championship game. I was up in, I didn't go to the field at all. I was in the press box the entire game, and we knew when we had to be on the news. So I told my cameraman specifically at this time in the game, regardless, or this time, we've got to be on at 10:20. So regardless of how long the game goes, there might be 3 minutes left in the game, 8 minutes left in the game, whatever, you got to go. Yep. That's what we figured out to get to the live shot outside the stadium. And it was, we were like in the Georgia Dome. It takes forever to get anywhere. And yep. I remember that I'm looking at my watch, and I'm watching him on the field, and I'm like, why isn't he leaving? Why isn't he leaving? And I waited and I waited, and I finally ended up going down, and the elevators are packed, and and I ended up going down the ramps. Right. I couldn't wait for the elevator, so I'm running down the ramps, and they take forever. And I actually had to run up the ramp, go out onto the field. He's like in the corner of the end zone, and grab him by the shoulder and be like, we gotta go. He was just too excited. He was a pretty young guy and excited about the game.
Oh, sure.
Yes. We barely made it on air that night. Good stuff with Greg Peterson from Husker Online on Rivals. And our guy, Navy Thomas, is here tonight. So he's got always something to say that's pretty opinionated. That has to be, you do a better job, Greg, of interpreting this stuff than I do. He's got no knee coverage of Adrian Martinez, QB, stupid. And then he also is going with played a lot of 4-3 string defense for a change.
Yeah. How about that?
All right.
So I'm taking it that Navy watched the game for a change?
Yeah, I was watching the ball game, I guess.
Good stuff. Yeah.
All right. With Phil here, we've got our obligatory look back to the 90s here. All right, Phil. Well, we appreciate your contribution. Thank you so much for the super chat. So we will talk regardless of what it is. We'll talk Nebraska football. You can't go too far back for us, but who's the team of the 90s, Florida State or Nebraska? Florida State had a winning percentage of 890. Okay, 8-2 in bowl games. Nebraska's was 868, which is basically, there's an advantage there, but it's not much. 5-5 in bowl games. Florida State finished top 5 in the nation every year. Plus, Florida State beat Nebraska. So obviously, he's making his case there, and it's a good case. There's no question about it. If I was going to look at the team of the 90s myself, I would start with Nebraska, Florida State, and Miami, and I would check out their 3 resumes because I think nobody else really has an argument in it. I think it's down to those 3, and I would have to, I'm not making a proclamation or a declaration myself right now, but you've made your thoughts known in the past, so if you've got anything else to go on tonight, Greg.
Well, I mean, the 3 teams that you mentioned, obviously that's where you would think, and national perception calls Nebraska the team in the 90s, and that's because of the national championship number of national championships they won. You know what? If I had a say in it, I'd split that and say that co-teams of the 90s. How about that? 2 legendary coaches and both putting their stamps on college football and dueling it out and riding off into the sunset eventually. So how about that? Have a compromise and say co-teams of the 90s.
Florida State and Nebraska was certainly, again, I throw Miami in the mix because when they were dominant, but they had a letdown during the 90s. And anybody else you pick out during the 90s, Michigan, Ohio State, USC, wherever, there was a letdown somewhere. Ohio State really not a letdown, but they didn't win a national championship and they weren't dominant. They were really good, but not dominant. Those 3. And then, yeah, I would separate Florida State and Nebraska as being just consistently dominant the entire time. Miami spiked with just ridiculously good teams, but they did have their NCAA sanctions and their downtime there from about 95 to 99, and they kicked it back into gear around 2000 with Butch Davis. But great question there, Phil B. Well, and you make some great points.
Yeah, and also, I think we've mentioned before, it's kind of it's too bad where Florida State and Nebraska have been, lately, because college football is way better when those 2 programs are up there at the top. Those are 2 of the storied programs around, and they'll both be good again. I have no doubt there because there's, you're down in Florida. There's no way that you can be down for too terribly long. So yeah, I think both fan bases are clamoring to get back up there and to be a household name, a top 10 team year in and year out, like they think they should be. So,
Phil, you gave me an idea for a video. So if you would like me to look at the teams in the 90s and try to separate it and give a full breakdown on everything that matters in the 90s, we'll do that for you. All right. Let's see.
There was something that we did fail to mention was that Nebraska just had a little schedule change that they did. They finalized their upcoming schedule by adding Fordham to their schedule on that week after the Illinois game. So there won't be a bye week there, and 3 straight games before Nebraska takes on Oklahoma down in Norman now. So I think that's big. They replaced Southern Louisiana, who was who was kind enough to opt out of that, and they'll reschedule that game here in the future. But that rearranges Nebraska's schedule a little bit more favorably now, and that gives you a chance to go down to Norman 3-0, and I think that's kind of big for momentum if Nebraska could go down there as a 3-0 team.
Okay, so then that Southwestern Louisiana or Southeastern Louisiana game, I think it was. Yeah, so that was before that Iowa Wisconsin close, right?
November 13th was supposed to be that game. Yep.
So that'll be a nice bye before two tough opponents to end the season.
Yep.
Very nice, very nice. Brad, I don't know that I'm totally on board with this, but hey, Mr. Rogers, I watched the Huskers. They lacked a lot of energy. Did you notice that? I think some people are just wanting to poke the bear a little bit.
Well, that's an advantage that you get when you're down there on the field is you can see that energy there. I can attest to I saw a lot of energy there on Saturday. A lot of guys extremely happy to be out there in front of the fan base again.
What's the story on Oliver Martin? You had talked a lot about him when you reviewed the wide receivers. Moonbot7 is asking about him being a main target. What is Oliver Martin's, what's his story?
Hey, I love this kid. He was here last year. He came in. He got thrown right into the fire as a late signee there in that shortened 6-game season, and he picked up things well and it helped them out down the stretch a little bit. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, he's going to be a main cog of this offense this year going forward. He's going to be that third. He's going to play the slot quite a bit, but he also can play out wide. And he's trouble. Because you're going to have him in there with the two big-bodied guys. The two big 6'3" guys, and then Oliver. He's sneaky fast. He runs great routes, and he's got great hands. And like Moonbot mentions, he's played for both Iowa and Michigan, and he gets to play them both this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up big time games in both of those games when he gets the chance to play against his former mates. So I think the sky's the limit for Oliver Martin. Like I said, you got two other guys that look like NFL draft picks. I think Oliver Martin could also play on Sundays. He's got that kind of skill set that kind of reminds you of maybe like a Julian Edelman type in the NFL. So I like Oliver Martin a lot, and I think he's going to add much needed punch to this offense.
Okay. If he can catch the ball with his hands like wrapped around somebody's thighs or whatever, and I'm just alluding to that Julian Edelman crazy catch in the Super Bowl where he kept the ball off the ground. He had his arms like it was some unbelievable play. But Oliver Martin, I've got his profile pulled up here.
Yeah, I saw him make a great one-handed snatch during the open practice. I think it was a couple weeks ago, and it was amazing.
Yeah, he's been around a while. He was in the 2017 class.
Yeah.
Number 1 rated player in the state of Iowa, out of Iowa City, 35th rated according to Rivals at his position, 206 nationally, with offers coming out from all over the place, 19 of them, and committed to Michigan initially there. Good stuff.
That's crazy. You never really see guys that play for 3 teams in the same conference either.
It is crazy. All right. David Knight's on the line, Notre Dame fan. David, we always appreciate you. Great to see you. Here's a bit of a different question here. Mark and Greg, at what point in time did you realize that your career trajectories were headed in a certain direction? Were you happy about it? David, I'm still waiting for my career trajectory to head up. We're still waiting on that.
I'm still waiting to grow up.
Oh, let's see if I can grasp what you're saying here. Just basically, oh my goodness. I've had kind of 2 or 3 different careers in one to a certain extent, but they've all been in media to a certain extent. So basically, I got out of college. I was a news anchor and reporter for 3 years. I always wanted to be a sportscaster, but you take whatever TV job you can get. And I was at a small station, news anchor reporter, did play-by-play on the weekends for high school and college football, basketball, swimming, whatever they threw me at. Actually, my first day broadcasting, I got a news anchor reporter job, didn't know anybody, it's my first day. And they told me, I walked in the door that morning and they told me I was going to be broadcasting a parade that night. And I had no idea who was who and what. I didn't know how to announce a parade. I was 22 years old.
How do you
anyway,
research that?
Oh my goodness. So anyway, I did the sportscasting thing for about 9 years and had a great time. Was a sports director at a CBS station. And again, that was probably from a fun standpoint. Forget where I worked, periphery stuff, benefits, how little money I made or anything like that. But it was just fun, just being able to have a blank slate every day and just do a sportscast and run the sports department. It was phenomenal with 3 SEC teams there. Then I did 19 years at ESPN as an operations manager in production, and that was a great experience as well. So I don't know about a trajectory. I've been all over the place, and now I'm doing my own thing here, David, and you know that.
Well, yeah, and I think most of us in the broadcasting world, in the media world, most of us don't get in this to become rich either, unless you're Bob Costas or somebody like that. But yeah, I mean, I'd always wanted to work in sports. I always, kind of dreamed to be a PA announcer for an NBA team was kind of what I wanted to do. But when I out of high school, and I'd always been an athlete and stuff, and I didn't really know, but I started to go to college I was a fisheries biology major, marine biology as well, and I hold a professional scuba diving credential. And while I was in school, I was working at a pet store, and I ended up buying the pet store with a friend of mine from high school. So I basically dropped out of school and was running a pet store until everybody's favorite Petco and PetSmart decided to start moving all over the country. And they moved into town and basically were putting us out of business. So I got out. My partner stayed in and for another year declared bankruptcy, but I went back to college and decided I wanted my broadcasting degree. So as I was going through college, I was always the guy with the camera anyway, growing up and stuff. And so, TV was a natural for me. And I met my boss, Sean Callahan, the producer of Husker Online in college. He was a young pup. I was an old, 33-year-old man, something like that. And we became good friends. And when Rivals hired him, I didn't know what Rivals was. Rivals was a fledgling company. He got the Nebraska site, and one day called me up and said Rivals was looking for a video producer. If you're interested, I'll put a good word in for you. He did. Rivals hired me over the phone after they saw my reel that I put together for them, and with my experience and stuff, they hired me right away. And I moved to Nashville for 10 years, and I covered, the nation, the top 5-star recruits around the country, and pretty much worked for every college. Wasn't just a Nebraska guy then. I was all over the place, but I never lost my Nebraska roots. And then back in 2010, Sean asked me to come back and work here in Lincoln. And so ever since then, I've been covering the team as well as recruiting, and I love it. My trajectory obviously changed, I think I would say, when I met Sean Callahan when I was in broadcasting college here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
That's awesome. Great stuff. Again, you can catch Greg's work right here on YouTube on Husker Online, or you can go straight to HuskerOnline.com, of course, the Rivals platform, and catch all the Nebraska football coverage there. And again, as Greg outlined, and we talked at length a little bit more last week, news conference clips interviews, player interviews, coaches interviews, the news conferences with Scott Frost, and practice footage. Great stuff there. And as Greg just outlined, every pass that Adrian Martinez threw during the spring game just posted there on Husker Online right here on YouTube. Wanted to get your thoughts, Greg, on and again, David, thank you so much for the interest. David asks those type career questions from time to time. I think everybody else gets put to sleep, but
cool.
David's curious. And so thank you, David. We appreciate that. Phil, and thank you so much for your contribution again there, Phil. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Can you do the chop for Phil?
Yeah. There it is. There it is. There it is. Yeah, they haven't been chopping much recently, but hey, better days ahead, I'm sure. They've got enough talent down there in state to turn it around.
Yep.
So this NFL draft twosome that were drafted the final couple rounds here. So just wanted to get your take on Brendan Hymus, Los Angeles Chargers, 5th round at pick 159, the tackle, and a guard in Matt Farniak. That went to the Dallas Cowboys in the 7th round.
Yeah, and I think those were the two draftable guys. And I think Brendan Hymus went exactly where we thought he was going to go, right there in the 5th round. And he's going to go right in there to the Los Angeles Chargers. And he's a darn good football player, and I think he's going to have a great career in the NFL. Matt Farniok, he was kind of a tweener. You didn't know if he'd be a draftable guy or not, or he would be drafted or not. And the Cowboys took him in the 7th round, and a guy that I've spent a lot of time around. I've been covering him since he was a sophomore in high school up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Washington High School, and a great guy, comes from a football, 4 brothers that all played Division I football in that family, couple in the NFL now. And, another guy that I think can definitely help out inside. He might see him be a center there in Dallas or, anywhere else that he'd end up. And but no, I think Matt's got a good shot there to have a good career as well. And then right away, the Chiefs ended up taking corner DiCaprio Bootle. They signed him to a undrafted free agent contract right away. They snatched him up right away. I think he might have been a guy that could have been drafted there in the 7th round, but I think the Chiefs think that they got a steal with DCap there. Another guy that I've known for since he was like a junior in high school from down in Miami when we saw him in a camp and talked to him and had no idea who he was and said that he loved Nebraska, and he sure did, and he provided a lot of memories for us. So yeah, three Huskers there getting a chance to play, and all 3 are great guys, and wish them the best.
We love talking Nebraska football with Greg Peterson. He makes it all happen for us from Husker Online on Rivals. We talk Nebraska football every Tuesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 o'clock Central. And a great addition to the show would be a sponsorship. So if you have any contacts to possible sponsors, or you yourself own a business and you would like, I would provide you with the information, obviously, to let you know how much you could benefit from, whether that's sponsoring this particular show or any other show that we do, or the entire channel here at the Voice of College Football. So just hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. All right. Anything else before we get on for the night?
It was kind of neat, though. I know I was talking to Turner Corcoran after the spring game there and asked him if he'd seen where Brandon Hymus had went. And he was like, oh, yeah, I texted him. I must have been right before they took the field for the spring game. So that was pretty cool. But, those guys all stick together. But, moving forward, even like Saturday is, it is all about recruiting. That was a show for the fans and for recruits that were there in attendance in the stands. And, I think there was a lot of guys that came away very impressed. I see there are some stories that came out of that that you can check out on HuskerOnline.com. Our recruiting team is always getting in touch with those guys and seeing how their weekends went and stuff. So that was some good stuff. And, right now, like I said, it's all about recruiting. That June 1st date can't come quick enough so that kids can start visiting campus, when everything opens up here. So going to be a busy time here coming up in June. Camps are going to be all over the place, and you're going to start seeing those recruiting classes start to fill up. So going to be exciting, a lot to pay attention to.
Moonbot7 is asking, I'd like to know what both of y'all's favorite piece of memorabilia is that you own.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Well, I had a little more time to look at that, Greg, so I'll jump in here first. You can think about it because I saw this coming. What came to mind for me is had a significant other who purchased an Art Schlichter jersey for me with his autograph. He was like my first favorite player when I was a little kid. And then also probably more meaningful because the firsthand experience was two things that came to mind were I was at a Mississippi State baseball practice and Tommy Lasorda was there. And I was in the locker room when we taped his speech to the team, and he gave a very heartfelt, meaningful speech just about life and how to grow yourself as a man, and just had a great speech. And then he gave me a baseball and he signed. I didn't ask for it. He just gave me a baseball, signed the baseball, gave it to me, talked to me for a few minutes. And then Archie Griffin was kind enough when he was in town. I think I've told this story at some point somewhere along my channel that I was hosting the Fellowship of Christian Athletes banquet one night, and Archie Griffin was the featured speaker. And earlier in the day, somebody gave me the idea it was in the middle of the summer, and when you're covering college athletics, your sportscast is pretty dead in the middle of the summer typically.
Oh, yeah.
And so I ended up contacting Archie Griffin, who I didn't know at the time, and he was kind enough to come down to the TV station, and we set up our sports show. Instead of on the set, we did it from the newsroom, and we just sat there and just kicked it around for like 5 minutes on the air. And he was kind enough to come down for the newscast, and I interviewed Archie Griffin, and he signed a book for me, and that was a nice interaction that I had there.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a hard question for me because you need to see my man cave to see how much memorabilia that I actually have collected in the last 52 years. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. People are amazed when they walk in and see my man cave bar down here. So, but I would have to live. I'd say, a picture that my wife got me of Walter Payton. A nice framed picture would be right up there, along with another picture I have that I got of Gale Sayers after I'd met Gale Sayers when he was at the U.S. Army All-American Bowl one year. I met him up in the press box and had a nice long talk, Chicago Bears talk with him. So I'd put those two right up there with anything that probably mean the most to me. And then maybe anything else with Tom Osborne, because he was another guy that I really looked up to and had talked with. I have talked with several times, and very, very, very cool guy. So yeah, those are up there. That's probably where I got to go with that.
When you mentioned Walter Payton, his brother was not anywhere close to the player that he was, but he still made it to the NFL. Eddie Payton.
Detroit Lion, yeah.
Yeah, he actually, I think at one point, I don't know if he still holds this distinction, but he was the first player ever to end in overtime with the returning the kickoff for a touchdown.
That was against the Bears too.
Yes, I believe it was a a Thanksgiving Day game.
Thanksgiving Day game.
Yeah,
both brothers were in that game. Yeah.
But Eddie Payton I was asked to host an awards banquet, like a advertising awards banquet. And they put Eddie Payton with me to host a banquet with me. And he just immediately we'd never met, and we just had to do this thing. We didn't practice or anything. And he was just such a nice guy and just took me in and was just so nice that it was very easy to work with him. And we just interacted like we'd known each other for years. And it was just a great night that I met Eddie Payton and got to work with him.
It's
good stuff.
fascinating that some people are like that you can just sit down with them and you have that relationship that it's like you've worked together forever. I mean, for example, the guy I mentioned, Sean Callahan, can do that. I mean, it's amazing, that you can do anything just off the top of your head with them, and it comes out amazing. So, yeah.
That's cool.
Yep.
All right, Greg, we appreciate it so much. I hope everybody appreciates and understands that Greg takes his time out here every Tuesday night to talk college football with us. And Phil B in particular, thank you so much for your contributions tonight. Everybody else, we will be back a number of times tomorrow, 2:00 Eastern, Ohio State Live, 6 is Florida State, and then we'll see what we've got in store for a late night show as well. Greg, we appreciate it. You have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you next Tuesday.
Sounds good. Take care.